Study session, Mayor and City Council meeting, 4 p.m. Wednesday, June 5th, City Council Complex. I call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Number 3, reports. Report of on Calle Sonora Bridge, Engineer Juan Guerra. You have 1 minute, sir.
Wow.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have a PowerPoint presentation, but I don't know if because Mr. Garcia says he's already ready. I don't know. I have calls if we can switch presentations in order instead of taking him out first. Yeah, I don't know.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Te manda solo tú.
Sorry. He has everything ready.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
State your name, your address, everything for the record.
Fernando Garcia de León. I'm a business partner of Kaiser Keller Partners. I live in Hermosillo, Sonora, and here to make a presentation.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is, as I said, Fernando Garcia de León. What I have to present here is the development mission that we have for Nogales East. We are the company that is developing 2,500 acres of land in Sonora, in Nogales, Sonora. My company is part of the Garcia de León business group that has developed, but is developing 2,500 acres, as I mentioned, located east of Nogales, Sonora. This project, Puerta de Anza, is considered to be the largest of its kind, probably in all over Mexico. I would say, to be clear, only in the north part of Mexico, at least. There's no other type of this project, particularly located along the border of the U.S. and Mexico. Right now, it accounts for 7,000 housing units and 2,500 inhabitants. This is a 25%. The total projection of the project, which should be around 100,000 inhabitants and some 23,000 homes. Within Puerta de Anza, we have a vision some 12 years ago to develop a piece of land that we consider to be optimal for the development of industrial, housing, commercial, and every type of activity, economic activity. We have considered in our project, in our master plan, to have a future border port of entry, both for pedestrians and passenger vehicles, as well as a health and wellness cluster, what we call the Ciudad de la Salud. We have a full presentation on that available for you, for anyone of you that requires. It is in Spanish. It's a rather large presentation. And this will be an alternative for medical services for patients coming from the U.S. and Mexico as well. An industrial and logistics district that will initiate, and that's the reason that I'm here, with the creation of a new livestock quarantine and logistics facility. Very much upgraded and much improved facility compared to the one that actually exists west of Mariposa. We are doing this project with the Cattle Association of Sonora, and we are pretty much involved with them. And this is the main project that we are presenting here. Obviously, we are also willing to and pursuing the possibility in the near future, as long as we can. We are going to keep on fighting on the possibility of moving the railroad from the center of Nogales towards the east of Nogales. And you will find that during my presentation that this makes an awful lot of sense to move the railroad to the east of Nogales, and we have planned the project accordingly. Also, a high-tech industrial park that will promote the location of university, research, and development facility, and its counterpart in the U.S. side of the border. If you take an eyes view from our project, Puerta de Anza is a certified sustainable urban development by the Mexican federal government. There's only 12 of these type of certifications provided by the Mexican federal government. We were the second one to obtain this type of certification. It brings probably a third of the total what we call a mancha urbana. I don't know what's the translation in English, but we are increasing the size of Nogales in the next 20 years of 1/3 to 1/4 of the size of Nogales, both area and population. Obviously, we had to think in both sides of the border. We believe that Ambos Nogales is a border region that has the most economic advantages for the location of logistics, location of industrial, medical, and commercial facilities. Obviously, a master plan sustainable urban development as Puerta de Anza is a good reference, located right across the border from where we want to develop. A good reference of how any future development of land in this piece of land can be done. By developing a binational coordinated project, Ambos Nogales will become a more attractive region for future investment, for the generation of jobs, for the generation of wealth, and wellness for the people on both sides of the border. Our initial proposal for this to happen, since we are working full speed on the Mexican side, is to propose the acquisition of 25 acres of land located in a property that we know that is owned by the city of Nogales, but that it is located within the county of Santa Cruz. This 25 acres of land will be our first step. For us, it's important to understand as investors how this works, because we have not done yet anything in the U.S. side of the border, and we need to learn how to acquire land, because we are looking into a much broader type of investment in a complete project, a urban project that can be developed in this area. This obviously will be, there is a project on top of this. This is the livestock renting and logistic facilities that we are doing alongside with the Cattle Association, which is the one that runs actually the quarantine place in west of Mariposa. This draft project comprises a border gate similar to the one that they have there, that closes and opens once a day for a few minutes. Recession pens, scale facilities, tipping facilities, holding pens, loading chutes. But everything is with the idea of improving whatever you have right now operating. Obviously, from the standpoint of view of environmental and to be very careful that everything is doing with the best technology that we have available. That's the general idea that we have for this project. Obviously, this can only exist if there is a counterpart in the Mexican side, if we own the property in the Mexican side, and we are trying to do with them the same project. This is not the only project that we have in mind. We have been working, as I mentioned, in the Ciudad de la Salud, which is a project that we believe that has all the advantages possible for the creation of a cluster of health and wellness tourism. This happens in many cities along the border, probably without much of a planning, but for instance in Algodones, there is the largest concentration of dentists in such a small city. Probably 60% of the people living there are dentists, but that's because of the market that is flowing from the U.S. What we have in all these studies that we've done is that at least 100 million Americans are either uninsured or underinsured. So the market for this and the possibilities that this generates for the U.S. side of the border and the Nogales, Arizona side of the border are just plain incredible. So we are working on this type of project. We have an analysis, economical analysis, because we need to raise money for this type of project. Still, the numbers are very sketchy, but we believe that we have something going on that can have a huge positive impact in this region. If you see, obviously we are looking beyond the border of the U.S.-Mexican border. We are ready to work with the authorities, particularly with the city and county, because in order to create this type of development, obviously we need to bring on a new border code of entry. This is a general idea But actually, I copied this from SASABE, 44 offenses, to incorporate this with the City of Health and also with the CAL. We started studying the possible future routes that are still not in any planning tool that the city has, nor any planning tool that the county has. We met with them, and we know that we need to propose these type of things. We found out that the Arizona Border Master Plan that was created by the Arizona Department of Transportation already includes the possibility of, if you can see in your presentation, a connecting route that should be there in the future from the border to 82, I believe, to SR 82, as well as they acknowledge that the need for a new border port of entry in that area should happen, and they incorporated in that border master plan the possibility of those two items. So we are not bringing ideas out of the thin air. We are working on something that already has been studied by the state authorities. We need to come down with some facts, with some investment, but we cannot go far beyond this. And I will excuse myself for bringing this page in Spanish. But this is all the things that we need to do before we have a master plan. In our concept as investors, we need to learn and help. We need the help of the city to purchase this piece of land to understand what the process will be like, to find out if it's possible and reasonable. If it will be reasonable and possible to work with the authorities in proposing what a master plan should be. We need to buy this property first to be certain that things can happen. There's two types of property. Either it's owned by the city or the authorities, or is privately owned. We are going to work with both of them in both cases. First with the livestock project, and afterwards with the health tourism project. We need to acquire land, and start planning on top of that, with the help of the authorities and complying with everything that we can do. At this moment, obviously, we are going to take a risk. We try to make it as small as possible by buying the land. But so far, what we have seen with the people that we have talked to, everything seems to make sense. Moving the livestock quarantine to this area with an emphasis on environmental issues and everything makes sense. The possibility of working with the authority, probably in 3 years we can have an initial route of connection. We can do the process to promote the idea of investment. And I live in Tijuana, and I have a very good sample of that in Otay and Otay Mesa. It's incredible what's happening there and what used to be before. It's not much different of what is there in Nogales. And since I was born in Nogales, Sonora, well, I can tell you that this is something that been there, hoping to happen, and I hope that we can touch your heart and tell you that this is ready. We are ready. We trust very much Nogales and Nogales, Arizona, and we hope we can have your support in order to accomplish this purchase and this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Really discussing anything else on the presentation? You want to ask anything? Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would love to go take a look at their property, just to see what the property is. I don't know if anybody's seen it. I saw the property, hay mascareñas ahí creo que hace 20 años, pero no he visto todo lo que tienen hecho ahí, ¿verdad? En el lado, en King Springs, se oyen las bombas allá agarrando el agua, pero no he cruzado para allá. I think it'd be very advantageous for if we took a little ride, or whoever would like to go take a look at what's going on over there.
I can bring you in virtually here to some of the housing development that my group of companies have been doing. This is low-income housing, one of the 7,000 housing units for maquiladora workers. The type of development that we are doing, it's was pretty much upgraded from the type of projects that you normally see in Mexico. We were required, in order to obtain that certification, to have every service underground and to have a bike path, this one here, and to establish all the services possible. There's no line, and this is for the lower income type of worker. This is not the only type of development that we are going to have. Obviously, we are going to, as planned, we're going to have different type of housing in different type of places in the development. We should have industrial, commercial, logistics, and everything, and this type of project. But I agree with you. I would welcome a visit to Nogales. There's one problem though in this. When we developers of housing finish a development, for instance, 1,000 houses, we are required by the government to deliver, that's what they call it, entregar el desarrollo al ayuntamiento. When we do that, when we'll take care of the development as much as we can, when we do that, normally the authority doesn't have enough money to take care of the development, and it kinds of gets dirtier, and it's not pretty well organized. In this kind of development, this last one, we did something differently. We created the idea of a neighborhood administrator, and we created also a way where the mortgage is includes the neighborhood fee. So these monies go directly to the neighborhood administrator, and it's much better. Still, we are not there yet, but we are doing something different in this regard. Also, one more thing. All the water all the sewage water in Puerta de Anza is treated within Puerta de Anza, and nothing of that water is sent to the U.S. for treatment. Everything is treated and infiltrated in the earth, in the land. Okay.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, he mentioned that he's talking to different authorities, the city and the county, but have you talked to the federal government? Because you're talking about opening a port of entry, and I don't know, we're having a lot of troubles here trying to man these ports in Nogales. So is the federal government going to be any problem?
So far, no, because the process for a new border port of entry falls within the two branches of each federal government that put together the International Commission of Border and Bridges, la Comisión Binacional de Cruces y Puentes Fronterizos. We submitted a project in the Mexican side through Secretaría de Relaciones Exteriores. I made a presentation in Brownsville, in Yuma, in San Diego. And there's a process for that matter to obtain an authorization from the Mexican government and the U.S. government. Also, we had a chance to talk with Alan Bersing when he was head of the CBP, and he explained to us when he was still in charge of that before being the Undersecretary of Homeland Security. He said that this only makes sense for Nogales, and he told us that the way to go is to start small with first a pedestrian kind of border crossing, such as the one in here in Nogales in ¿cómo se llama? Morley, and then start growing with that. That you have to have the planning for that matter for the future for that. So we know our way around. We know that if we are going to go to different authorities, we are talking with Alan Bersing to retain him as a consultant, and we believe that it's not going to be right in the park, but we are going to be there. We are used to that.
Yeah, because you're going to need a presidential permit to get that done.
Obviously, yes.
And you know the president we have now.
I kind of have an
Very
idea.
good friend of Mr. Hunter.
Thank God for that.
We have a good bit of difficult presidents as well in the Mexican side of the border, but as much as we can as institutional, we get a way around.
But let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You're going to be You're gonna be pumping water out of the Mascareñas aquifer, no?
No, actually, the water that we have right now are south of Nogales. They're two different, ¿cómo se dicen? Cuencas.
Sí.
Sí. And the water already was getting into Nogales. See, there's some specific amount of water established for consumption in the city of Nogales. So we are not adding to that. We only establish some infrastructure in the origin and taking it down from the pipe. So, no,
But I think eventually it all flows into the Santa Cruz River. If it wasn't pumped out, that whole aquifer, that whole system flows into the Santa Cruz River and it goes north. And you know, when you have another 100,000 people on the east side of Nogales and all those homes and everything, basically you're going to be pumping water out of the same system that we pump out for our city and our growth. You know, and that's the Santa Cruz River. And as you know, just so you know that
there's a
in recent years, our water table, our water levels at the Santa Cruz River pumps have gone down. You know, because there is quite a bit of pumping right now from Nogales, Sonora, from the Santa Cruz River as it is right now. But you know, I understand. You know, there's nothing we can do about your growth over there. You know, but you talk about planning. If you're going to plan for such a big development in Nogales, Sonora, you should also take in consideration Arizona, Nogales, Arizona, because we could someday annex Pino Springs, and that would be our key development for residential, because the city of Nogales is limited in residential right now areas. So we have to, you know, look at that area too. You know, because we have to take that into consideration always, you know, for our own growth.
What we did in order to be reasonable with that was to establish from the beginning that we were not going to pump any wastewater into the United States.
No wastewater.
I know, but
Agua
in that
potable.
case, I know agua potable. What we decided is to have a self-integrated project. I'm trying to say that we are concerned about that. We take that into consideration. Any future growth of the city and any federal agreement that both countries have, we need to subscribe to that. We need to be within that, and that we understand. I believe that it's going to be much better to work together with the authorities in the U.S. for whatever project we have and be transparent and provide all the information as we can and work with you in order to obtain the reasonable solution for any problem.
Yeah, because those are concerns I've always had, you know, because we had to develop some pumps on the west side here at the Potrero wells, so that we could have the 100-year supply, because they were going to place a moratorium on the city of Nogales for growth. So we couldn't grow anymore unless we did that, just because we didn't have the 100-year supply from the Santa Cruz River anymore. So we invested $3 million already, and we have our own wells over here behind the Meadow Hills area, Potrero, de las montañas de Pajarito Mountains. So that's what I'm talking about planning. If we want to grow, we need to have 100 years of water. The state will put a moratorium and you can't develop anything. You can't build hotels, hospitals, schools, nothing. They won't allow you to do that unless you have to show 100 years of water. That's what I'm saying. Can you show 100 years of water on that development?
Probably no. I need to research more information on that. But what I can show right now is our willingness to work with you in order to find a reasonable solution.
Those are key things, because if you grow in Nogales, Sonora, it's like if we were growing.
Right.
You know, we might not develop anything on this side, but if you grow and you get another 100,000 people,
Because
that means we grow. That means that, and remember, we're downhill from you, okay? Hasta el viento se viene para acá. All right?
Okay.
viento, agua, drenaje, everything comes down to Nogales, Arizona. So we, as a city, we have to be very, very understanding, and not only us, but Nogales, Sonora has to be understanding about what could happen. We want to grow too. We want to grow too, but we're limited because of the topography. Just like Nogales, Sonora is limited by the topography and El Cañón. But you're taking it to the east side where you have a little bit more open space to work. And that's the same thing. If you notice in the Arizona side, in the Keno Springs area, if that area was developed, you could have a good sized residential area, a nice residential area there. But I was talking, Mr. Mills?
Sí.
Okay. He plans to put an industrial park in there. And that whole area, he wants to rezone that whole area all the way to 82. So his plans are different than yours. His plans are like industrializing the Keno Spring areas, not residential areas, not golf courses, not like the Ciudad de Salud que tienes tú. Tú sabes, acá bien suave. His is a whole different animal. So, these years are going to be very important for us when it comes to planning.
I was involved when I was working in the state government of Baja California with the same type of problem, but upside down. We had in Mexicali, in the Valle of Mexicali, a problem with water because the flow of the water of the Colorado River was coming downstream from the U.S. to the Mexican side. And I got involved in that subject, and the response for that, the correct response for that is not who depends on the other, is interdependence, is working together in order to find a solution. Because the needs are on both sides of the border, but being smart and work together, that's what makes the difference. I'm ready to help out as much as I can. I'm not an authority, not even in my home. You can ask her. But I believe that we have a good project that will benefit both sides of the border. At this moment, what we need to start up with purchase the land and find out if this type of things can be worked out. We are ready to work with you, and hope we can have your support for that.
And Mr. Mills' interest is east of yours.
We have it very clear.
It's closer to the river. Ahí está la manita.
Aquí mero.
In that area.
Yeah, you know what? I've seen many projects, even in this area. A few years ago, we saw a whole enchilada here with different kinds of land use and everything. It's very difficult to have a development of these sites if you don't have the perception that you have to start small and little by little start growing on the projects. It's very logical for us because we have built maybe 50,000 houses in Mexico. My family has. We know that if you create the population, you sell houses first, then the virtue circle will bring commerce. When you bring commerce and jobs, you will end up bringing industry, and you bring commerce and industry, you will bring more population, more housing. Yeah. So that's the logical circle. But you start small, like a 25 acres. That's what we have in mind. We've done it already. We don't know all the truth because we need to learn in the U.S. how to do it. That's why we are coming here, humble, to tell you we're ready and we need your support.
Very interesting. One more thing about the plans that Mr. Mills, he brought another one yesterday, the day before yesterday. Every week, he sits at home and he throws something else. He's even contemplating that he already talked to the mine that's being developed in Patagonia, in the Harshaw area, for a road that comes from there, from Flux Canyon to Keno Springs. So that road will go across through the so-called port of entry that he plans in his future to go into Mexico, because they're going to need to transport all those minerals to the port of Guaymas.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at all that, if you look at all that plan he has, and you know, I'm not looking at a residential area no more for Nogales. I'm looking at an industrial area on the east side of Nogales. That's if we were to annex that area.
Uh-huh.
But then I told Mr. Mills, I said, why don't you take your plans to the county and show them to them? And he said that he showed it to them, but they basically said, go back to Nogales.
Well, let me tell you one thing. All of this here is industrial zone. This is what we have, all the industrial zone east of our project. Why? Because this is the railroad here that goes all the way to the mining project. It comes short, probably less than half a mile from the border. We knew that from the beginning that this area is where a future border crossing should happen. If you want to move the border crossing, the railroad from the center of Nogales, this is where it's the only place where it should be. And obviously, in the U.S. side of the border, we are planning to have, once that we can do our master plan in the U.S., obviously this area is for industrial. See, as much as we can, we're going to put it like a mirror. Industrial on the Mexican side, industrial on the U.S. side, such as the thing that happened in Otay side.
You know, I myself personally, I'm not speaking for the rest of the members of the council, but industrial should stay within the border area.
Correct.
Industrial shouldn't be next to the golf course in Keno Springs.
No.
All right? The plans he has, he wants to rezone all the way to the Santa Cruz River on both sides, and supposedly he talked already to Mr. Hathaway that owns that big chunk of land over there. And I think he also talked to the Sedgwicks, who owned a big chunk of land. And so, you know, maybe zoning, you look at dollars faster than residential areas. So, you know, the city of Nogales wasn't well planned in 1926, but as a new government and what we have now, our intentions is probably to make sure that anything's developed from now on is well planned.
Correct.
You know, with good roads, good access roads, good opportunities for employment, residential, retail, industrial. So we have to be, as you have to understand, as a body here, government body, for the city of Nogales, I myself, and I know probably the members of the city council probably feel the same way. We have to look at that. We can't do the same thing that our forefathers did when they concentrated the city of Nogales in a valley that wasn't going to go anywhere. And I'll give you a perfect example. Look at Sahuarita. Sahuarita is only like 10, 15 years old. They have bigger population than we do. Very well planned. The roads are nice. They have lakes. They have everything. Perfecto. Everybody wants to go live over there. All right. So we need to do that for our future growth.
We've done it already. Nogales, Sonora is not a much better plan as Nogales.
I know.
And
We're
what
in
we
the
have
same
here, it makes a big difference. We know that you consider planning and take the best technologies and the best ideas. That can happen. Nogales, both Nogales and Nogales deserve that. And it's only going to take time and a lot of effort, but it will happen eventually.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
Just
Yes, go
one.
ahead.
Senor Delor, on the cattle, I heard this back in last year at the conference up in Hermosillo. Are they much further along with the border crossing of the cattle? Can you explain how far along they are?
Well, we had the visit of the USDA authorities. I went with them, accompanied the Cattle Association authorities. They fully review all these options compared to the one that they have west of Mariposa. As you know, probably know, there's some kind of problems in that area. Probably it's because it was established many years ago. I understand that the wind brings odors and things like those, contamination. But this seems to be the reasonable side, the intelligent side. And their request and their willingness of the Cattle Association, along with us as a partner of them, is to establish the best possible border crossing for cattle, the best logistic facilities for cattle transportation and everything. I know that it's going to take time. It's a matter of investment. We know that they are not going to take, we're together, it's going to take some time for us to have our revenue back, but this is the best place. There's no other place along the border right now where we can do that. This is the property, our property in Sonora, and this is the property in the US side. And anything that can happen there, if you will, probably, I will ask you to put all your effort into asking us to do the best job that we can for the future of this area, because this area is going to be industrial and logistics. That's the location of this.
But have there been start of talking of the border crossing of the cattle?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Already, yes, we know that what the process is in order to shut down that one and open this one. It's going to be easier if that happens in that way, in that fashion. You close one and open that. It's much easier than opening a new one.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The property that the city of Nogales owns there is not within the city of Nogales limits.
Correct.
So all of the building structures and everything, the city of Nogales will have no say. It will be up to the Santa Cruz County as to what restrictions they have on the property, what they can do on the property. Yeah, that will be totally governed by Santa Cruz County and nothing by the city of Nogales.
Correct. If you're talking about the safety codes,
Yes,
it would
every
only
code.
be the, however,
Zoning codes.
right. However, if we sell it, you know, at an auction, we can think about putting a covenant, a restrictive covenant on the property. And so we can, as an owner, have future control if we don't just convey it freely. If we convey it subject to restrictive covenants.
So, but basically what I'm looking at this dialogue here is not so much in covenants, is that do we want to sell the property, or do we want to lease the property, or do we just want to keep the property? That's the only thing that for me is a viable discussion here. If we have a concern about the water, Mr. Mass is correct. We can put a covenant in there, because otherwise, once we sell the property or lease the property, it falls all under Santa Cruz County planning and zoning regulations of what they can and they can't, or how they can do it. So, in the future, a discussion on, are we interested in leasing the property of what they say, or are we interested in selling the property? I, for one, am not in agreement to sell the property right
Yeah. And the thing is that you have to remember, that little parcel will be dead center in our big parcel.
now. Right. And Mr. Councilman Henician says that there's another owner within that area that we own. There's another owner of that property there though too.
There's a 40-acre parcel that's
Parcel, yes.
basically landlocked within our
Landlocked.
township.
Locked in there.
So I don't know if that landlocked property is within the boundaries of
I think
his
it's a
property.
little to the east.
A little to
No, no,
this, right?
it's in, that's set in the middle of it. That's it.
Not within this. It's right next to it. It's right here.
Is that our property up there?
Yes.
City of Nogales
Yes,
property?
the orange one is
All
probably
of,
your
all of that is
property.
that.
Okay.
Right?
All right, so you're saying it's not within the 10 acres or 25 acres that you want?
No, the 25 acres are within your property only, and right next to the 40 acres of the other.
But it's
Okay.
next to the 40
Right
acres.
next to it.
Right next to it. This
Well-
is, see, that would connect that property to the border. Still doesn't get them up here, but it connects it to the border.
John,
Excuse me if I can,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor, if I can just clarify something that Councilman Henesian said. Our property doesn't go to the border.
I know.
A few years ago, the federal government condemned a 60-foot strip.
just
So-
like it has downtown, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, you'll have to talk to the federal government, obviously, to cross that 60-foot strip.
Same situation with the cattle crossing in this, exactly
Yeah.
the same. They open the gate.
John, did you say Border Patrol was interested in some land over there?
Yeah, so Border Patrol, when you scroll down,
Lo acerco.
East.
Bueno, no, lo tengo que hacer en el...
oeste.
Sure.
Weren't you already there?
No,
Didn't know you were showing.
ahí está, ahí está. Déjame alejarlo.
Right in this area here,
Yeah,
currently Border Patrol has 60 foot.
yes.
They're gonna go to 120 because they're building the bridge across
Yeah.
the river. So they need 120 so they can jet out with the road a little bit because they can't build the road with the 60 foot.
So tell them it's $1 million a square mile.
Yes.
Probably take down the Constantine wire and come back.
Tear down the concertina wire and $1 million a square
I don't
mile.
think that they're gonna.
We can donate the land to them.
Donate what?
See, the Trumpsters talk,
Jesus.
Trumpsters.
Yeah, right.
Well, Mayor, the only
Yes.
thing is, I just wanted to point that
Yeah.
out. Maybe in the future, we can see what we want to. I think Mr. Massey brings out a good point in the covenants, but I think for us here, it's just, what do we want to do with the property? There's a 60-foot easement there that belongs to the federal government that he needs to understand that nothing is going to happen to that property until he gets clearance from them. And I don't think he's going to get any kind of a clearance with the Trumpsters. So he's going to have to wait still a while unless he gets some negotiation, direct negotiation from the President Obrador from Mexico. But I don't think we're much in a hurry for this. And we're not going to give you the property for free, so you're going to better expect to pay top dollar for it. Okay? So I know you're looking for investors, but don't think that because you have this project that we're just going to hand over the property.
No,
We're looking for-
it's our own money. We are not, for this kind of project, it's not going to be investors' money. And also, obviously, we have found that that's something that we have to negotiate with the federal government, both federal governments. We have done already some work on this regard. And then we are not looking into leasing. We want to have ownership, in any covenant that we do have to put on that. We're more than glad to comply with it. We're going to be here for the long term, and we need to do things correctly from the beginning.
And you do know that we can't sell it just to one person and it has to go out.
I know,
Okay.
we're ready for that.
Yeah, because we might put it out, somebody might come in and say, you know what,
Fully understand.
I'll give you
Yes.
more money.
That's it.
Okay.
That's right. John, could you help us there, where the piece of property that they're talking about, you've got that yellow line, is that a road going up, or what is that?
No, this is,
Proposed road.
That's a proposed road, and the other was also proposed road in the bottom?
Yes,
The other-
correct.
Yes.
That's a
Those are
proposed,
proposed roads they're gonna
No.
do. The current road that we have right now comes right down through here.
It-
Comes
it-
here, comes down here, comes across this building, and forks here. This goes to the police ranges, which are here.
right?
This one forks out, goes across the river, keeps going down all the way to the border right here, and then you can take the new Border Patrol road and come back around this way if you want.
Okay, now, the yellow one, where we come through, that comes through,
We come through here.
Royal Road, right? Is that at the
Yeah,
end of Royal Road?
End of Road Road.
This one ends
Yes.
at, this one ends at, Royal Road.
It ends at,
This
yeah,
is their proposed.
okay,
And
where
this
would
will
that
come out
take,
of Thelma.
where would that take the road? Going through
Thelma.
what?
To Thelma. Thelma Street.
Oh, it would go, it would come through Thelma Street?
No, it's coming out here at Kino Springs.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the other one. But
But
the other
road
one,
comes
the
out of
other one
Thelma.
takes you, not Thelma, takes you to the Love Ranch.
What does it look like, Thelma?
Love Ranch,
Aquí, mira.
right up next to the Holbrook Overpass.
Aquí está Thelma, right?
Next to Esther's house.
Right.
you know, these proposed roads are based upon the logical, less complicated approach. It's where the hills are less complicated, more feasible to develop. But these are just rough ideas. We are ready to go in and purchase and start working with every item that we are going to face. We know that it's not going to be easy. It's for the long run, but we are prepared and ready to do it.
And that infrastructure that you're showing there where the yellow road kind of meets the purple road,
Uh-huh.
that's overlaid. That doesn't exist.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Obviously.
That doesn't
those
exist.
buildings don't exist.
Don't
No,
exist.
no, that's an overlay.
Overlay,
Oh,
just to give you an idea of what a new border province might look like.
I was gonna ask what that was. Well, I've always felt, Mayor, the property along the border It's kind of sacred, and it'll probably be sacred for the next 25 to 30 years for the city of Nogales. The city of Nogales had prime property on the border, and they sold that property, and that person went and sold it back to the federal government.
I know.
And we were supposed to use that piece of property for economic development, and we sold it. We should have never have sold it. We would have had more bargaining rights right now with the federal government with that property,
Yes.
because we could have prohibited a lot of their staging areas from even coming close to the border because of that. So I'm real hesitant to go into any kind of for sale right now on property that we own on the border.
No, we're gonna have to look at this
Yeah.
very seriously and.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Mayor, there's no harm in looking,
Mm-hmm.
all right? And I think that's the best attitude is let's find out where somewhere along the line it would benefit the city of Nogales. If we were to annex all that area, somewhere along the line it would be considered city of Nogales. It might be 20 years from now, it might be 30 years from now. You know, I'll be here, others won't. But you know.
Or it might be in
I
2 months.
I think that it's worth just looking at. And again, I would love to go over and take a look at the property over there.
I'll be glad to take you. Let me add
Maybe I think we're gonna,
The Trumpster's looking
he's
for
the one
free
that's gonna,
meal.
you go look for it for all of us and then come
Okay.
back with your
I'll bring your pictures.
pictures, yes.
Trumpster's just looking for a free meal, Mayor, that's all he's
Yes.
just to mention, council member, it's good for you to be concerned of what has happened before. If you sold land and it was purchased and then sold back to the federal government, and nothing of the economic development happened for good. We are economic development. We are the ones that are bringing good employment, investment. If we don't bring in this, there's nothing will happen with the city government property. This is our first try to do something in the U.S., and we believe that is the right place to do it.
Okay,
I
just
hope
an
you can
example.
convince you.
Say you had that, and you had that cattle, how many cows will you have there?
Perhaps some 300,000 per year.
300,000 per year.
Uh-huh.
So you have to develop your own road to get out of there, no?
To get into that place from the Mexican side, yes.
No, from the American side.
Yes,
Because
obviously.
they gotta, if you're gonna bring them across, where are they going?
Obviously, that will happen in 3 or 5 years. And what we are doing right now for that, the Cattle Association owns the equipment. And one of the things that we are investigating is how can bring our own equipment and by looking to the very rigorous regulations that the county has in order to build roads and everything. We need to do a lot of work beforehand to find out what the cost is going to be, where we're going to do it, if there's any participation of the federal government or whatsoever. What we're going to do is eventually we're going to need to bring the cows out of that zone. Obviously we need a road for that matter, very clearly, and we are ready to invest in that if necessary. How is a long shot to tell right now, but we know that this is the right place, and we know that
Have
if
you ever
we
heard
bring
of an environmental impact study?
everything, we're going to work on that. Obviously.
Environmental impact study, how about the engineering, of course, is gonna kill you to get out of there.
I know, it's kind of complicated to resolve that,
Yeah.
but you know what? Cattle or no cattle, eventually you will need to connect this area. As the border master plan elaborated by the Arizona Department of Transportation establishes, you're gonna need a road from here
Yeah.
in that area. It's not only for cattle, it's for industrial zone, it's for medical services and everything. It will happen now or eventually, see? And better, we believe that if we have a chance to do it right now, we will start with the purchase of land because we want to develop the land correctly. We cannot do much of the investment in environmental feasibility analysis whatsoever if we don't have any assurance that we own the land.
Yeah.
There's no sense. See? But we are ready to do it as soon as we can, as soon as we have assurance that we have the land,
Okay.
and work with the city.
Well, thank you very much, and
Thank you
it
for
was a
the
good
opportunity.
presentation.
Thank you.
And we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you very much.
Gracias, señor.
Aquí en la tarjeta.
Sí,
Ah, tiene su nombre aquí, Nubar.
aquí viene la presentación en la primera página.
Ok.
Y al final también.
Ponte los lentes, mi. Vaya.
Ok, gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Fernando.
Gracias, alcalde. Gracias.
Luego hablamos.
Seguro que sí.
No, that's fine.
Well, Marcy, let's not take your attitude. Let's not see how you would have. Let's keep it. El león piensa que todos son de su.
Yo voy a hablar con usted.
Mira, es que I would love to. I haven't. Have you been out there? I haven't. I would love to go there. I haven't been out there.
Don't get too friendly, man. Don't get too friendly.
40, 50 years.
¿Dónde crees que viene?
Entonces, pero notas, este pedacito.
I'm in a study session of the city council. I'll call you back when we finish up after the meeting.
Mira, aquí está la propiedad que quiere ellos, right here. Y esta propiedad de aquí, esta propiedad de aquí, a veces esta aquí está en medio de todo.
Gracias,
Gracias, gracias. Mira, ¿quién son los dueños? Entre ellos, Manuel Mascareñas. ¿Sí? Son 40 acres, no es lícito, son 40 acres. Pero están en mero, ahí está. Ahí está lo de la ciudad, aquí viene para arriba. Claro que viene para arriba, baja para acá. No se ve para acá. Y ahí están mero.
The White House and Representative Mexico has made it.
I'm ready for the presentation.
Este sí.
¿Y este qué es?
Este sí. Esther.
Claro. Pues sí.
Esther, what's your opinion? ¿Tienen dinero esta gente o no tienen? Mucho. Marcy cree que son inocentes que salieron del rancho antier.
Tú nomás pon la figura.
Vienen del rancho seguida de mi buena aquí en Arizona. Este igual de millonario que yo.
No.
They got 25 million cash.
They do.
Otherwise,
Ah.
You know,
Claro que los
we were talking about that same figure.
You can write your check what he's
otherwise, that'll help us, but otherwise,
That would help us.
we're not gonna budge.
All right,
Thank you.
Marcy, can we
now
put
you
a
really have
development
2
clause?
minutes.
Okay.
They'll do what they gonna develop, we get it
What is
back.
this?
No, it doesn't work that way.
Well, thank you for the opportunity for, bringing to you what we have done in the last few years in regards to, in a study requested by Mayor and Council, and I'm here to tell you the status of the project so far. So, first of all, I want to go back a little bit. In 2015 is when Mayor and Council requested constraints analysis to identify the worst existing vehicular breach that we have, and then the consultant, which is Wes Kimberhorn, identified Calle Sonora, Gold Hill Road, and Produce Road as being the three most the breaches with needing to be replaced or improved. So in 2017, Mayor and Council approved to hire a consultant for the design of Calle Sonora. And we started doing so with a statement of qualification in December. Yeah. In January 2018, we obtained a conditional approval from the Arizona Department of Department of Transportation to use CMAQ funding, congestion mitigation air quality grant for the improvement of this road. Is listed in the tip list from SIGO for 2021. So in January 2018, we received a statement of qualifications from consultants. In February, we met with Union Pacific to just go over the scope of work and talk to them about the possibilities of widening this road. At that time, they mentioned that they have also funding available for improvements, but they prefer an overpass bridge than a level grade level. So they can help, but if it's an overpass and eliminating level intersections. So they have conditions.
Yes,
Could
right.
you repeat that?
Yeah. So Union Pacific stated that they can contribute up to 10% of the cost for an overpass bridge, but eliminating another one. So they want to get rid of a level crossing. It's liability for them, and they are willing to provide funding for bridges, but an overpass.
For an overpass?
Yeah.
But not for what,
Not for what
what's
we
projected,
had, yeah.
to redoing that bridge.
Correct. So it's
The
a
overpass
possibility.
would be a solution, actually. Right, the overpass, if the state goes along, that would be the solution.
Next, in the same February, we, sorry, I meant to repeat that one. In March, we obtained, we selected the most qualified engineering firm, which is by coincidence was also Kimberly Horn, because they have a lot of technical knowledge, but they have done many studies in the city and they are very well aware of what we need. And so the selection committee selected Kimberly Horn again, and then we initiated negotiation with them. They presented a proposal, which I will present not the whole proposal, but what they requested for the design a little bit later. So we, in consultation with the management office and the legal department, we decided to terminate a contract with them because we considered that was too high, the engineering cost. So we initiated negotiation with the second lowest or the second most qualified consultant, and it is where we stopped last year, just with the proposal from the second most qualified consultant, and we are now, a year from now, from there we have not done anything in that regard. So we are here to talk about the challenges that we face moving forward with the project. I want to go over, because some of the council members were not here when this constraints analysis was developed and presented. So this is one of the concepts developed by the consultant as one of the solutions to mitigate the traffic congestion there. There is a second one that it works the same. Technically, they said that is the same effect or the same benefits. This and this slide. At that time, the mayor and council of 2015 decided to move forward with something like a runabout.
And you're gonna name that roundabout Hanesian roundabout?
We can name it, yeah.
He knows that. He didn't know what a roundabout was 5 years ago.
No, they used it as an engineering term.
Okay.
It was, the term was, it was an engineering term. I said, don't think roundabout is an engineering term.
You know what he thought? He thought it was a walkabout, from in Australia. You go walk out in the woods and stuff like that.
That was for Meadow Hills.
The greater.
That's for Meadow Hills, yeah.
So,
Oh, and then for the high school.
High school too, yeah.
They wanted
so
roundabout.
the idea was in
I'm all for it, I'm all for it.
in 2017, mayor and council instructed us to move forward with the design phase for this layout. For this layout as presented here, and starting with the design and the possibility for also the right-of-way acquisition for the property, vacant property right here, and some of there is a residential area here, and then also commercial businesses that in order to improve this area, we need additional right-of-way along this corridor. So moving forward with the concepts here, what the constraints analysis end up with recommendations, and then they did a traffic simulation, and also they provided the improvements at the intersections in Grand Avenue and Calle Sonora and Hohokam and Calle Sonora. both of the intersections will be barely improved after the investment. So I want to show you that this is the definition of level of service. But technically, what it is the delay in seconds per vehicle. So a level of service A is no delay at all, and is going down up to F. According to the traffic studies done in those intersections, our current level of service for Grand Avenue and Calle Sonora is about C or D, between C and D. And for Calle Sonora and Hohokam is, I think, according to them, is A. According to the traffic studies there, they perform traffic counts for a few days, even during the peak hours, and they consider that there was no significant delays, according to them. These are the graphics provided in the report done in 2015. These arrows are showing the change in, this is Grand Avenue and Calle Sonora, and compare, this is the top graphic is the existing level of service, and the bottom graphic is the future level of service after improvements. So as you can see in these two rows, right there, the existing level of services, it varies depending the direction going on. But let's take one here for D, and it will be improved to C. So at the end will be, after the improvements, will be 8 seconds per vehicle in the morning and 23 seconds per vehicle in the afternoon. That will be the benefit of the investment. That's for Grand Avenue and Calle Sonora.
But that's doing what? Doing what? The
roundabout? The roundabout and
roundabout.
The widening and everything. So this is for the next arrow is just comparing
but that's leaving the bridge as is?
No, widening the bridge a little
just
bit.
widening it,
Widening.
but leaving what is there.
Correct.
Not knocking the whole thing down.
No, knocking everything. So including the...
Getting rid of what's there completely and putting in a brand new deal?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You have to acquire land on both sides.
Yes.
So that they can widen.
From the railroad or from who?
No, as you come in Mariposa Road, you have to widen, like from Alex Tires, you have to take a partial from them and a partial from the other property, so that they can make the returns into Grand Avenue to accept the traffic.
But how much are we talking about now?
I will show in the next slides. See according to the engineers who did the study, see the level of services here.
It's not that much.
It's the same thing. As
it's
you
the
can
same
see,
thing,
it's the same thing. Existing level of service, future level of service is nothing changed in the Hohokam and Sonora. And this is why. Because it's not an overpass bridge, you will be stuck with the train crossing. The Nogales wash running full. It will be overflowing maybe because the drainage capacity will not be improved, will be at the same level. So there are certain limitations that after investment, it might not be the best thing to do. In terms of benefit cost. These are the estimations done by the consultant in 2015 when they developed the constraints analysis. In 2015, Kimberly Horn stated that the total cost for the improvement there, including right-of-way, will be $4.8 million. And the typical cost range for engineering design is about between 8 and 12% of construction, of the construction cost. So they, at that time in 2015, they were about 13%, the design was about 13% of the total construction cost. Excuse me, the construction cost. And in 2018, last year, when we asked them to prepare a proposal for the design, they said, oh, wait, we were wrong. The total construction cost will be this much. So they raised the design fee to $836,000, just the design. They were still in the 12% range, but the construction cost magically went up to $7 million or so.
Magically?
And that was a year ago.
Yes, that's correct.
Isn't that worth the discussion?
It's not worth it.
Yeah. So then I wanted to put in the balance the pros and cons that I see from my professional opinion about this moving forward with the project. It's a lengthy development process as one of the cons. The process obviously will be improving the bridge loading capacity by bringing additional decks and with the current truck loads. It's a very low benefit cost. Let's say if we take the latest estimation cost by the consultant, 8.5 million, for not improving the traffic delay at all. So it's a very low benefit cost. It will improve traffic safety, no questions, because it's too restricted, yeah. Remain the same level of service. This is one of the graphics that I show you, the traffic delays, but it will provide geometry improvements. Here we have a little bit more cons, like drainage capacity will remain the same, and then remain the same level of crossing with Union Pacific. So at the end, we have a little bit more cons than pros, and I wanted to show you what I see moving forward.
This is a very good presentation here. I just hope, the reason that we suggested this was because of that study on the 3 bridges. I forgot who did that study. And they indicated that we should look at this bridge, the Bafford,
Gold Hill Road,
Gold Hill Road, and
Produce.
Produce. So we decided, the council at that time, to start with this bridge, but it's quite, in any business cost benefit analysis, there are more cons here than there are for the small time of improvement. It's not worth it.
Not worth it.
It's not worth it at all. The only thing is, the ones who were advocates of all of this was the Port Authority, right, on that. Did they pay for that study, or did we?
No, we paid.
We pay for this.
We
Well,
paid for it.
then they just need to know about it, about your results. Maybe, Dr. Fernandez, you can write a letter to them or the city engineer to tell them about this, because I don't want them to think when something goes wrong, well, the city knew about this and they didn't do anything. So before they get ahead of the game, they need to know that we did this, we had this study done, this is what the results of it, this is what we came out on a business decision, now we're gonna move on to another bridge.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna move on to the bridge. I think all of us will run the same gambit, right?
Well, that I don't know. We don't know if we don't study.
I will present a little more recommendations in the future slides. These are the projected expense. Let's say if we continue moving forward with this, let's say using overweight fees, that's my analysis. Obviously, don't take this like it's an analysis from a 50,000 foot level, but the 2 projects on the top are the projects that you will be approving in the next agenda items. So the idea is to use overweight fees. So I'm just projecting the expenditures from the overweight fees.
You do a lot.
Yeah. So this is the money required for the Perkins Avenue. This is the money required for Magna. And then let's say if you decide to move forward with this project, this is what was estimated. This is the cheapest the estimation cost in 2015. I'm not taking the most expensive, but this is.
But it's not worth that.
Yeah.
That's out the face.
So 405,000 for the design, and then 700,000 for right-of-way acquisition, and then this is some matching funds that I'm also assuming that will be coming from the overweight fees. This is another project that we have in the list from CIMAC, which is the pathway along Grand Avenue. And this is the Calle Sonora improvement in 2021 if we want to move forward with this.
Just throwing money away.
So bringing the let's say this money is let's say the carryover from the expenditures, and then the balance that we have now is 2.5 million minus all the assumed expenditures in the past slide. So excuse me, this is wrong. I guess when I provided the presentation to the IT department, I provided a prior version, but this is the total should be more than that. So what I'm missing here, and I don't know, sorry, but my point is this might be correct. Sorry for that. So this is okay because I'm bringing. See, let me show you where is my mistake. This slide was not updated with the amount. So this is wrong. It's over 2 million. So this is the right amount, 2,038,000, and then the remaining balance will be about 500,000, 550,000, no, 550,000, excuse me. So I don't know if you remember that for the next few years, City of Nogales committed 50% of the overweight fees.
Yes.
So I'm considering that of forecasted revenues. In 2020, we'll have about 450,000. In 2021, another 450,000.
You're lucky.
So this is a grant that is not for sure yet, because that said, if funding available, we'll provide 1.5 million, and we need to pay 5.7%. So they will pay 94.3%. So it's 1,400,000 and something like that. So if we assume that all this money is coming in the future, we'll have in 2021 2.8 million or 2.9 million. The total cost, this is assuming that is the cheapest estimation cost. The total cost, well, we are, let's say, sure, it will be about 200,000. So we are right there if we go with the lowest estimation cost by Kimberly-Horn. But if they are right, at the time of the proposal that they gave us last year, this is the analysis too. This is what it will cost,
7 million.
and we'll be short 4
4
million.
million, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Nothing-
No, you already said on the cost benefit, it's not worth
It's
it.
not
Yeah.
worth it.
So
Yeah,
what's-
it's not
what-
worth it,
so-
yeah. All right,
Move
that's
on.
good. That's
We're
good.
gonna have to sell half of Nogales to do this.
Well, I
We're
would
talking
have
about
thought that,
25 acres over there, half of Nogales, downtown.
Yeah.
I would have thought there that the acquisition, $700,000, that those people that are getting the property would donate the property because it's gonna benefit their businesses and everything, but not. Maybe they want that, but regardless, it's not
Yeah.
worth it.
It's not feasible.
It's just, I don't wanna be throwing good money after bad money just because that study and that. So just move on to another project and come back and tell us.
Okay.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes,
can we have a 5-minute break?
yes, yes, we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll go into number 2.
Number pass.
On to number 2.
Discussion item.
Edgar, desde el principio.
That's yours.
Desde el principio era
That's your puppy.
Desde el principio.
I get the additional
Y
slides.
todos los demás es el mismo problema. It's the same thing, the railroad's still there. They're not gonna gain anything.
I didn't finish my presentation because I have other options.
No, ahorita.
I can-
The options we need is to fix, put that money in todo Nogales.
A little handout,
In the
Mike.
next 2 years, we can redo
Two-sided
a
one.
lot in Nogales.
Just gonna do a 55,000-foot
Tenemos
overpass.
3 millones o 4 millones.
Oh, another one?
Yeah. We can
You
do
better
a lot.
put a parachute on.
Nada de que un puente seco ahí para benefits, nobody.
You know what? That's what it was, because I put sunscreen there. But I can't see. I have my cap.
Oh.
But I was going too fast. Yeah, it blew off.
You could look at mine, and Letty has hers.
No.
I better take a break.
Están muy pensativos ustedes, me mortifica. Malo, malo. Si te quemaste,
Yeah, to make it.
¿verdad? Ah, pero andaba ahí en la
Yeah.
moto. Pues.
Andaba.
Andaba de chule.
El cholo. I like
Voy para
that.
acá.
El cholo.
Pero más para allá, nomás a tu rancho. to get them to the border.
Discussion item number 2, charter change. Mr. Massey?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll take you through this pretty quickly. The process is pretty straightforward, and we've done this a couple of times since I've been here. We bring a resolution to City Council for adoption, and the resolution would have the actual language of the charter amendment, but we also propose at the same time with the same resolution the publicity pamphlet language as well, so that the information is consistent, obviously, with what the amendment would achieve. The process is set out for amendment in the Constitution of the State of Arizona under Title 13, which relates to municipalities. This is from Section 1. It's submitted by the legislative authority of the city to the qualified electors at a general or special election. Now, the legislative authority in Title II of the Arizona Constitution also includes the electors for the initiative process. So our Constitution specifically says the electors are part of the legislative authority. So it can go either way, through the council. Council can authorize it and put it on the ballot, or the electors can, through the petition process and the initiative process, put it on the ballot. Possible election dates remaining in the next near term. November is practically off the table because it would require final language, everything to be adopted no later than basically the end of August. And that just puts things really tight. But that would be for a November 2019 election. That's not a county election, it's not a state election. So the whole cost then would be borne by the city.
No, the school district is having an election.
And in November?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we will share it with the school district.
Thank you, council member. March and May, unless the school district or another legislative or another body did it, same thing. Those are possibilities. And then August and November, those are county and state election dates.
November would be state and county.
Right. And the August being the primary and November being the general. So we would pay just like we always do if we have a question on there, a prorated cost of the space on the ballot. Okay, so that's the process, and of course council by direction to staff can drive that process and tell us where you want to go on that. Proposed substantive changes. Right now I'm just proposing, it's just for me, just from the legal department, just housekeeping type changes. So the first proposed change is to Section 8 of the current language of the city charter. And I have a handout on that. I can just, here it is, right on top. Mayor, if you can pass that along, appreciate that. And so, Section 19, which is under Chapter 4, Nominations and Elections Process in our city charter, actually conflicts with other areas of the charter and with state law. So that just raises just a huge, sign to say this is something that needs to be amended. And I've highlighted the two areas. The bottom one is, it's still saying a term of 2 years for council members. And that was changed by a charter amendment in 2002. So we do a staggered 4-year council membership now. But, so that's...
Mr. Massey, but when there's a charter change that's approved by the people, doesn't that automatically supersede this?
And more importantly, it's the more recent supersedes automatically the earlier one. So if you, like the voters did, that clearly supersedes this. So this is not something that creates a legal issue. Very, very quickly, the more recent supersedes the later. It's just, as a matter of housekeeping, that particular charter amendment overlooked this particular provision in this section. So you know, my opinion, I think the opinion of any reasonable attorney or judge, if it were ever, God forbid, be thrown into court, this 2-year term provision is invalid. And now, what's interesting though, go up to the higher section that I highlighted, is back in, when this was adopted in '85, it changed the election date from the city of Nogales from, I believe it was March as a primary and May as a general, to coincide with the state and county elections, and that was a measure of foresight when they did that.
Thank you for that statement, Mr. Massey, because I was on the council at that time. The youngsters here weren't even around the block at that time. And we are the ones that, under the leadership of that Mayor Fontes, that we did that because we didn't think that we had an election in April, then we had an election in May, then came the election in September for the regular league, and another one. The people had 4 elections within 6 months.
Right.
Let's give them a hand. That's all.
Well,
Yes, I'm not a Trumpster.
okay. Well, I hope you didn't write this language, because I'm going to be critical of the language. Because it says that the primary election for the purpose of mayor and alderman for those offices to be held on the 8th Tuesday prior to the general election. That used to be how state law was written. 8 weeks prior to the general, that was the primary. That hasn't been the case for the last 3 elections. So since 2006, they moved the primary to late August. Now they moved up
early
to
August.
early August. So according to the charter, we can't be consistent with the state, and so I am going to author a formal city attorney opinion to say the intent was to correlate with state and county, and so we will match the state and county primary, even though this particular provision says otherwise. Because that it would be more chaos, worse than what it was before. It would be election in August, election in September, election in November. You know, that doesn't make any sense. And we would probably have the Department of Justice all over us because we would be creating chaos and how to elect people in the city of Nogales. So, but nevertheless, even though in my opinion, neither of these sections is currently valid, if we're going to do charter change, why not clean it up? That's called housekeeping. The second area of the housekeeping, I've got more handout. That would be for you.
Mr. Massey, the only thing is, I would prefer, Mayor, that we do all the housekeeping that we can do before we do it, because I don't want the ballot to confuse the voters either.
Right.
And then they get frustrated and just say no.
That's why we got to spoon feed them, but do select. But what I look at it is low-hanging fruit. So the point of amending section 19 would just be to fulfill the intent, which is obviously what happened in the earlier. And so, and simply adjusting.
Now, I said we could have some sour apples like in the last Superior Court race and take us to court and drag this thing, where we could have resolved this ourselves, and we don't want to put ourselves or anybody in that position. Like
So that's section 19, and that's just to correct language that is crying out for correction. I still think this is more in the under the rubric of housekeeping. Was all of section chapter 8 under administration, where we set forth the various departments. We have a problem because we have more departments than are listed here, and one department that's listed here we don't currently have. So this is out of step with our current way that we function as a city government. So I looked at the City of Phoenix and the City of Tucson, and they don't list their departments in their charter. They have language, and I do have some proposed language, this is very draft language, would be you have a section in the charter that simply says, for example, this is virtually directly from the charter from the City of Phoenix, upon recommendation of the city manager, the city council by ordinance may create, change, and abolish offices, departments, agencies, boards, and commissions. So you vest all of that authority in the city council. And then as needs change, departments can change, and you don't have to go to the vote of the people to change. So what I would suggest is just like one big ballot question, and I don't have language for that, which would be yet, but I would certainly have that in the coming weeks, is we just delete a lot of the administration sections of Chapter 8 to be replaced with a simple statement like that city council creates and abolishes and changes through an ordinance. And an ordinance process is very, very formal, but it is doable.
Mayor? Yes, go ahead. While you're conducting this discourse, would it be possible to do some of the cleanup for this November? To get the minor cleanups that we need to get cleaned up so we don't get into a problem for the next election? And then in the primary of August or November of 2020, do another set of cleaning up?
Well, it's possible. It's just the time is pretty truncated. We would probably be looking at having actual language to adopt, maybe at the next regular meeting in July.
We're talking about cleaning.
Yeah, cleaning up, exactly. But and so yes, we could do that. That is a possibility if that's the direction of council. The other area that I really want to talk, and again, it's a part of the same couple of sections that I gave you there. Within the administration department is section 71, the judiciary department. Other charters pull the judiciary out or call it actually a municipal court chapter, because the administrative area of city government, as we currently have it as a council manager form of government, you're really thinking that administration is under the chief administrator, which is the city manager. Municipal court is not under the city manager. It's under, if anything, it's under city council. And city council has to be very delicate on how they look at and manage, and you can't micromanage the court.
You kind of look at it, it's under the Arizona Supreme Court.
Right, and so that section really should be pulled out of administration. Okay. And then you get into some of the little quirky terms that are in that section. First of all, it's calling the name of our city court, and you see there on the bottom of page 25, quote, the police court of the city of Nogales, county of Santa Cruz. That's what it was called in 1926.
Yeah, well, in 1985 we used to refer to the police court, and if the mayor recalls, we used to have committees, and he was the chairman of the police court or the police commission. He was called.
So.
No, you can't.
To my ears, that sounds a little antiquated. And then not only that, if you go to chapter 11.5 of our city code.
Just tell us the page.
Oh no, I didn't put it, but it's part of the code, not the charter. There's a municipal court chapter in our code. And the code says, there's hereby established in the city municipal court known as the City of Nogales Municipal Court.
But not in our charter.
Do we have two courts?
Yeah.
A police court and a city court? You know, the code doesn't reference the charter. They didn't. So I do have code amendments on that particular chapter coming forward. Judge Cartwright and I have looked at it. We're sending it over to the administrative office of the courts to make sure that all of our fines that we are creating and things like that, or authority for fines, is consistent with what they believe is appropriate for municipal court. So, the two should talk well together.
Absolutely.
And so section 71 probably is ripe for some substantive changes, including, if you look, again, this is on page 26, there's this whole long discourse, and it's all one section, so it's not very well put out, but I think A in there, it says, so B is actually the problematic one, It shall have and exercise concurrent jurisdiction with any justice of the peace having jurisdiction of the whole or any part of said city over all matters, both civil and criminal. Our municipal court does not exercise the same amount of civil jurisdiction. I mean, it's just, we don't do the small claims, we don't do the FEDs, which is the evictions. And yet, here it is, we have jurisdiction to do that. So a proposed change would be to remove that civil jurisdiction. No municipal court exercises jurisdiction like that. It's unique to the Justice Court. And so, and then it says that it's open on all, which court shall always be open except upon non-juridical days, and on such non-juridical days as it may transact such business within its jurisdiction as is authorized. So it's always open. So I told Judge Cartwright she better be working Saturdays, because non-juridical days is not defined in the charter or anywhere else. And so we should just say it's open Monday through Friday except for city holidays. You know, the Arizona Revised Statutes, when they're talking about the Superior Court and the Justice Court, they say that they're always open except for non-judicial days. And they define Sundays as being a non-judicial day. I didn't know why Superior Justice Court are not open on Saturday then. So, you know, non-juridical days, we shouldn't be using a term that's not defined, that it's not used anywhere else. I don't know where that term came from. And so, and we can do a lot of reorganizing of that section because it's a long section, and in the middle you have A and B, and then it goes back out and it has more discussion. It's like, well, where's the organization to that? Where's A and B, and then A1, A2, B1, B2. So we can tighten that up. So there's housekeeping there on section 71. There's housekeeping in section 19. And then the whole organization of chapter 8 regarding administration can just be summarized by giving that authority to city council. So that's what I have for housekeeping.
And Mayor, and I think what Mr. Massey has pointed out is extremely relevant. The only thing is, I'm just hoping that Mr. Massey could present something so we could get it onto the November ballot, just as general cleanup. And then we'll gives us the council more time to see what we want to put on either next August or next November. But at least let's clean it up so we don't get ourselves into the legal predicament that somebody chose this to take us on.
Yes.
Okay, before we go, I know we're going to knock this out now. But on section 67, Public Works Department,
Yes.
you're not touching that one, are you?
Well, I would propose to delete it and create that authority by ordinance by city council. You can adopt the ordinance, so like, for example, on section 71 relating to municipal court, as soon as we get that ordinance revising chapter 11.5 of the municipal court, we'll be bringing it to you for adoption ahead of the election. So you can do your ordinance updates well ahead of the election on the charter.
So you're not abolishing anything?
The intent is not to abolish, but what we do is we take those departments and we create them by ordinance. So the Public Works Department already is
Mr. Massey, if
part
we
of
take
the
the
chapter.
department and put it under ordinance in comparison to charter, does the people under ordinance still fall under the city manager?
Yes, of course, it would still be that way.
I wanna make sure.
Because we have to follow the charter. And so the charter right now creates the city manager form of government, and all of the administrative staff of the city is underneath the city manager, with the exception of those offices that are directly appointed by council. And so I would not touch any of that organization, but we would just streamline the language so that when council wants to create or divide, there was an ordinance that at different times over the years, and Mr. Mayor and Councilman Verona, you know that more than I, Public Works and Utilities was one department, then there are two departments, and then get reorganized, and so there's all kinds of
Right now, you
reorganization.
haven't even seen what's going on over there.
So
There is no director anymore, no Public Works director. There is, I mean, everything's going all over the place.
Well-
So I'm really concerned. I already talked to the city manager and John about that you hire a public works director. Now he's community services something, I don't know. They took it away from him. They created another position.
Right.
Now you have a planning and zoning director that
Right.
tells everybody what to do, even engineering.
Right.
When I was hired as public works director, my duties were all 7 departments except planning and zoning. And basically what it says right here. And except at one time, there used to be a street superintendent that was the
Right.
public works director at the
Mr.
time.
Neva.
That's the way it was. And for all those years until 2000, when the city manager formed a government, that's when they changed it from street superintendent to public works director, but you still had the same duties.
Right.
And now I see the organizational chart, and it's all over the place. It has not. This was thrown out to the trash. So, we have to. If we're gonna have a city charter, let's follow the city charter.
We have to follow it.
Follow the city charter. Don't create something just because somebody new comes in and says, you know what, this is what we're gonna do now. No, it doesn't work that way.
Right, but we don't have, for example, that's a good point that you're making, Mr. Mayor, but our charter also says we have a public health department. And by statute, all the public health duties and authorities are vested in the county government.
Well, the charter also says the police department used to run the animal control.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that we don't do
I
that
know.
anymore. But I mean, those are things I understand.
Right.
I understand. If the county has a public health department, I understand. We don't have
So
one.
the intent would be to take those abnormalities out of the charter.
But we
And
do have
and
a
if you're
public works
concerned about the current organization, we can bring ordinance to the council. And by ordinance, you can enact what the majority on the council thinks is the best way to run.
think this.
Yes, so we can do that. We can bring an ordinance to you, and I will be bringing, like I said, an ordinance on 11.5 on the municipal court as soon as we've done our due diligence, and we can do that as early as next month, next
Good.
meeting.
Okay, perfect. Could we put down to clarify, instead of recreation, parks and recreation, so
We-
people understand
Yes.
Right.
who's responsible?
So what we can do is we can have those ordinances already adopted. And then our publicity pamphlet will say the ordinances already have the departments set out. You don't need to set them out separately in the charter. And there's a need for flexibility
That's,
to, at times, different city councils will see things maybe slightly differently. And, the creation of a human resources department, the creation of an IT department, that's not listed in here. And so as the times have changed and as the needs have evolved, we've created those departments. And, we just need to have a clear statement in the charter that city council has the authority to do what it's already been doing.
what it shouldn't be.
Yeah, okay. Are you done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Well, Mayor, what is
Yes,
it?
you go.
I know he's gonna continue to
Yes,
come back.
yes,
so
I
we
will
can
come
have it in
back with
November.
language,
Yeah.
hopefully some draft language on charter, and I'll definitely have draft language on rewriting the municipal ordinance.
Just enough to clean up
Right.
anything that could get us into a legal predicament, clean it up for November, and then we can do something else for August or November.
Now,
The
Mr. Mayor,
fall.
does it
Yes.
get us in any trouble if we go ahead and we pass the ordinances ahead of time?
I
And
don't
then
think so.
what would happen if they don't pass?
That would be I'll have to think through that, but,
I mean, would the voter get the feeling that maybe we're trying to pull something over? them?
right, because if, right now, for example, the reason why we're not going to follow the explicit language of section 19 on when to hold the primary, we're going to coordinate with the county and the state, is because we believe that that's the intent that the voters had in 1985.
That's
Now, if they reject that, and we offer that to them, and they explicitly say, no, we want that to be, our primary should be in September, I think that would be, I trust the voters. I don't think they're going to do something that
They
is just,
trusted the voters too, and look what they did with the Trumpsters.
well,
They did the correct
there you
thing.
go.
They did the
So-
correct- And they'll do it again.
Now,
And
at
then
any
when it runs
rate,
again in
at any rate,
2024, you'll do it again.
if there is that slight risk, if you present something to them and ask them to adopt the amendment as a purpose of housekeeping, and then they turn it down indicating that they really want that, then that's the most recent voice of the electorate, and we have to go with
Right.
their most recent statement.
Yeah, but I think we need to clean this up.
Yeah.
We do need.
Yeah.
We need to start cleaning up our charter.
Okay. All right.
I will do that.
So,
That's good enough.
motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Means adjourned.